They turn around and try to jump up and grab the ball. That's not rebounding. That's not boxing out. That's lazy. It is nowhere close to an overreaction to say that they can go 500 or better in ACC play.
I think there's something to be said about that specific phenomenon. 5 guys saying, there's no backup plan. It's just us.
Breaking down everything from around the hill.
When you get doubled up on your shots and even one more to put a cherry on top, there's no possible way you can win a lacrosse game.
You can tell it just dissipates out of nowhere. And it's the in-game adjustments that have hurt Syracuse.
And giving hot takes along the way.
In the Heat cloud, they want him to be Jesse Edwards, and he just isn't.
Fran Brown is a home run hire for Syracuse.
Get your voice heard by calling in at 315-443-2011 or interact with us on social media at WAER Sports Talk. It's Sports Night, and it starts right now.
Friday nights are for Sports Night. Welcome into our WAER studios. Alongside Nathaniel Cunningham, I'm Andrew Delapian. Excited to dive in right away, Nate, to what was a all right week of SU sports, if you will.
Yeah, I'd say it was I wouldn't call it positive, but I'd call it solid.
Solid. All right.
Solid.
We'll start right there then with Syracuse losing to Clemson back on Wednesday night by a final of 86-72. If you want to interact with us and talk about that game from Wednesday night, please do so. Call in 315-443-2011 or shoot us a text at 315-556-3929. And hey, we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter at WAER Sports Talk as well. And Nate, off the top, the defense for this team in that ball game was flat out atrocious. Am I right?
Yeah,
in saying that?
I don't think you'd be wrong.
Okay.
And I think that's the theme, really the storyline as far as I'm concerned with this team all season long. Mm-hmm. This team can't play defense. They cannot stop anybody. And I think what makes it frustrating is the fact that they played good defense in the first 8 minutes. You did it for 8 minutes. Now let's do it for 40. Like there was an attempt, no attempt to stop going over screens. There was no attempt to, hey, let's stop people from getting in the paint or let's hard close out. There was nothing that makes you say, oh, yeah, this was excellent defense outside of those first 8 minutes. And it's frustrating, honestly.
Do not get me started on the whole under the screens thing. We have seen this so many times this season, and especially against really good three-point shooting teams like Clemson is. They entered that game top 5 from behind the arc. And you got a guy like Chase Hunter who is shooting over 45% from deep this year, and he still knocks down 4 threes because you're going under screens.
He's chasing the the single-season three-point percentage record in the ACC.
And you're not pressing up on him on the perimeter. That doesn't make any sense to me.
That's a high school theme.
Of course
that
is
something you learn in middle school and high school. When you have a good shooter, you go chase them off the three-point line. If they're going to burn you, make them burn you on 15-foot shots. That's something that you can live with a team that shoots the ball as well as Clemson does. This team can't do that. And that's like, I don't care who you are. You give a player 3, 4, 5 shots, they're going to get one of those in. And then once they get one, that small basket, it becomes an ocean. And Chase Hunter's going to hit those. That's just who he is. He's going to hit them.
Yeah, the Tigers went 45% from deep in that game. They are now winners of 9 of 10 games when they shoot better than 40% from deep as a team. If that number doesn't tell you that you got to guard the three against one of the better three-point shooting teams in the league, I don't know what does. I don't know what does.
No, it's simple. And I think, again, it just comes down to why is this team not learning? And honestly, I have to put the question on Coach Autry. Why is this team not learning? It is your job as the head coach to say, hey, we know that this team can shoot threes. They're going to come out and try to shoot the three, and we got to guard it. And every team that shoots the three well, you haven't been able to guard. What are you afraid of? Are you afraid of somebody overpowering Eddie Lampkin? I don't think there's many people in the ACC that could outpower Eddie Lampkin down low.
Well, maybe not outpower, but out finesse, out skill a little bit.
Sure, but
sheer weight on weight, like we saw in that BC game.
Yeah.
Where it's just big guy on big guy.
Yeah, that like classic Big East style, just pound the paint, get it to him, clear it out, let him take 2 hard dribbles, figure it out. Maybe there's a couple guys that have a little bit better footwork, and you're going to expose them defensively, but the guys that have better footwork are tall and skinny. I'd like to see if they can stop Eddie Lampkin defensively. So I think, the game plan is simple. Run teams off the three-point line. And we're over halfway through the season now, and this team has failed to do that. It's unfortunate because, like, this team probably could be at worst the middle of the ACC squad, and they're just not playing like it.
Where do you think the defensive problems lie for Syracuse? Call in 315-443-2011 or text us at 315-556-3929. And don't forget to interact with us on X and YouTube at WAER Sports Talk. Alongside Nate Cunningham, I'm Andrew Del Piana here on SportsNite. And something I kind of want to piggyback off of you just said, Nate, is pounding the rock inside. Clemson still had 40 points in the paint in that game against Syracuse, and the Orange only had 20 on the offensive side, so teams are still attacking Eddie Lampkin, but I think they're doing so in a way where he doesn't have to directly attack him right at the paint, where you really have to make him move on the interior for you to get some easy points there.
Well, I think it's more than just attacking him and attacking this defensive system.
Well, those players are just getting in the lane so easily.
But I don't know if that blame is as much to blame on Eddie Lampkin as it is the rest of the team.
Well, the guards are not guarding at the perimeter, so what
fair.
else is the guy supposed to do?
A fair statement, but the ball movement that other teams put on Syracuse's defense in general, there were a couple plays at the end of that first half for Clemson where they would swing the ball around, and they're quick passes.
Oh, their ball movement was incredible.
And you get a dump down to Ian Shefflin, so now this man defense crashes, but then the forward who's on the other side, or JJ who's at the top, isn't coming down to that painted area where they're supposed to be to protect that then skip pass. So then you get somebody else like a Chase Hunter cutting down the lane, and it's a free floater. So I don't know if it's as much as Eddie Lampkin getting exposed as this team not making proper rotations. If Clemson's going to swing the ball for 30 seconds and they're going to chuck up a three at the last second.
Let them do that.
Exactly. you can live with those. You can't live with wide open layups because you weren't in your right spot. Like, it just seems like a failure to drill defensive sets that you learn when you learn the game of basketball.
Correct.
It's like there's a problem with that. But I think at the same time, Eddie Lampkin's inability to move side to side hinders him. Like, Syracuse hasn't had a true center since Jesse Edwards left. I think that's fair.
They've been trying to fill that void last year with Naheem McLeod, and of course that experiment went out the window.
I wonder
pretty
what
quickly.
really went wrong. It do
you mean portaling wise or just?
No, well, yeah. Like, I think portal wise, you can bring that question, but like, what's the problem with Naheem McLeod? What really went so wrong with Naheem that like you just
unathletic,
but like
can't move up and down the floor, can't score, can't.
Granted,
I mean,
he did get injured, but like, we haven't even seen him this year. And like, I know Autry likes to run a little bit of a short bench.
It doesn't help that Donnie's out too, right?
That's fair.
I mean, Eddie's playing north of 30, 35 minutes.
That's a big guy playing 30, 32 minutes a game.
He said he's getting in better shape-wise conditioning.
He looks like it too.
Absolutely.
I think he looks like, despite how he may physically look when he's moving up and down the court, he looks like he's gotten used to the schedule, and he's used to just kind of moving up and down the court, which is nice to see.
But still, the overall consensus we're getting at is really no matter what you do on the defensive end, if you don't have effort, if you don't have toughness, it doesn't matter.
No,
whether
100%.
you play your zone, man-to-man defense, if you stack just the 5 players down the lane in a single forward straight line, it doesn't matter.
No, I think too, and I wish this team was slightly more athletic, because I think the 2-3 zone, and I'm going to put that in air quotes.
In air quotes, yeah.
Because,
for good reason.
No, because I think this team would benefit better from a 2-1-2 zone.
Okay.
And the reason I say that is this also comes with a guy like Donnie being healthy when you have a little bit more athleticism. But it doesn't expose Eddie as much in the two. Like, Eddie can get really exposed in a 2-3 zone, especially at the high post. In a 2-1-2, he can guard the high post, and then those low block areas are dependent upon your athletic forwards that you have there at the bottom. But that isn't the case because Donnie is out. Technically, I still think he's considered day-to-day, even though he's been out for around 3 weeks now. But day-to-day, Donnie, if he can come back relatively soon, I mean, I think this team can turn it around. I really do. And I think they can win tomorrow and kind of just jumpstart their kind of pathway back to the somewhat decency in the ACC.
Adrian Autry spoke after Wednesday's games about what they can control on the inner half. Here's what head coach Adrian Autry had to say.
So a lot of it, again, was us being self-inflicted. I give, credit to Clemson. They're a good defensive team, but a lot of it in that first half, I thought was us. Not being aggressive, not cutting backdoor, not flashing, not moving with the pace that we talked about in practice all week.
Now that more stems from the offensive side of things. So we'll kind of shift gears into this after pretty heavily on the defense in the first 10 minutes. There was plenty of stagnant offense. You look at that score line of this game, 86-72, and you would have thought, oh, Syracuse was in this for most of this game. They were absolutely not.
No, they weren't.
I mean, they were south of 30 points at halftime.
Yeah. It's you try to come up with an excuse and you try to explain it. There's nothing I can really come up with that warrants it.
Well, it's a broken record after every game. Taking
Like,
care of the basketball. Bad shot selection.
Well, taking care of the basketball, the team turned the ball over 14 times, and Clemson scored 19 points off it.
Well, they had a streak of 5 straight games where they had 15 or more turnovers in every single one of those games.
Yeah,
and they won one of them.
There's also I think something that's also interesting is that over Syracuse's last 5 games, which they're 3-2 in, they have had a stretch of at least 4 minutes where they have not scored in just the first half. Not the second half, but in just the first half of their last 5 games, they have not scored for at least 4 minutes. You cannot have that happening. Now, I'm not saying you got to score every 30 seconds, but you cannot go 4, 5, 6 minutes without putting the ball in the basket. Even on a free throw, who cares? Points are points. Like, you got to score the ball. This team is not moving when they're in their offense. Motion offenses are, again, something you learn playing the game of basketball. And it seems like this team just isn't doing that.
Well, they shot over 50% from the field, right?
Their shooting numbers were
over
excellent.
50% from 3, and you still lost by 14. Now, maybe more so that's the defense not doing their part, but again, offensively, yeah, there's some good you can take from this, Nate, but us and the people at home watching this game are sitting in Clemson's already up by 20 with 3 minutes to go in the first half, and I'm watching the offense just not do anything. J.J. Starling is holding the ball for 20 seconds at the top of the key while no one else is moving. And that just kind of stems from, and I really thought when J.J., and I kind of hate to go on a ramble here off tangent from this game, but when J.J. was out, you were looking for somebody to kind of take that next level step, and there really just wasn't. And it's great to have J.J. back. I mean, he scored 17 points in the first half.
Yeah.
But still, nobody else is out there helping him in trying to win these conference games.
Well, I don't know if that's inherently true.
You don't think so? I mean, he's by far the best player on the floor,
correct,
no matter what.
Unequivocally. The difference is that I think Eddie Lampkin has kind of come into his shoes a little bit better. I think he's kind of hit his stride, if you will. I think Kyle Cuff his stock has gone through the roof without J.J. Starling on the floor, and now he's really kept that momentum. I think Lucas Taylor has looked solid. I think to say that players haven't found their rhythm is a little bit of an insult or a little bit of a, not crediting their work.
I think it's just the inconsistency of it.
That's
what I was
okay.
getting
Yeah,
to.
that's
there's
fair.
no consistency outside of number 2.
Okay, yeah. All right, yeah, I'm fine with that. I'd agree with you there.
Like, there is little short spurts of that rhythm being shown.
Correct, yeah.
But if you can't do it on a consistent basis, night in, night out, then who cares?
Well, you want to talk about consistent, too. You mentioned JJ had 17 in the first half.
Yeah.
He finished the game with 25. That means he had 8 in the second half. Usually it's the other way around, where he can't start off the game hot, and then he torches it in the second, and that's how they came back to beat Notre Dame. He's got to be consistent in the second half, too. So I think overall you could just say it's an inconsistency problem with this team in general, not just as much one player. I'm a big team guy.
Yeah, I know.
We're a team.
We're a team.
Everybody's a team.
We
An
win as a
Ohana,
team, we
if
lose
you
a
will.
team. Yeah.
Exactly.
What member of the Ohana do you want to take that next step? Call in 315-443-2011. Shoot us a text at 315-556-3929. And tweet at us as well at WAER Sports Talk. And also pop us on at home on YouTube at WAER Sports Talk as well. Nate Cunningham, Andrew Delapiana here on Sports Night, taking you up till 9 o'clock on this Friday night. But still, I think the overall general consensus of what we're getting at is they're just not good enough. right? They have these moments where they show up some nights.
Yep.
The defense kind of shows up other nights, but still at the end of the day, there's just not enough to will them to victory.
So is that, I guess let me pose a question for you
Go
then,
ahead.
because is that this team structurally and how they're built, or is that the fact that this team every 2 weeks seems to be changing? Because earlier in the year, things were off to a little bit of a rocky start. You had a couple close games in those non-conference slate, and then J.J. Starling goes out with a hand injury, and he's out for 7 games. And then he comes back, and now your 5-star recruit and Donnie Freeman's gone. And the impact that Donnie Freeman has is the fact that he's a top 15 scorer, top 20 scorer in the ACC when he was on the court. He led the team in rebounds. He provided to be efficient. So he would, in theory, be the number 2 option and be able to score consistently night in, night out. So that solves your question we were just talking about. And so now it's like, is this as much to blame on Syracuse not having the right roster? Or is this a Syracuse team that just kind of fell on like the injury bug and bad luck?
Maybe, but you need to have some depth, right?
Yeah. Oh, I agree. 100%.
And I was looking at that Clemson team last night. Plenty of depth, and the question came into my mind when Syracuse had a guy like Joe Girard, when they had a guy like Judah Mintz.
Yep.
You would have loved to have someone in your backcourt like that right now instead of Jaquan Carlos.
Yeah.
Because those two are definitely getting it done a lot more than Jaquan is right now.
Yeah.
And there's just no one in line behind him to help him up there.
Yeah, and I think like Chris Bell not having a really off year.
Chris Bell took 2 shots against Clemson.
Chris Bell
He's one of the best shooters on the team. You got to take at least 1 3, right?
Yes, but his confidence is down. The way that he talks to the media, he kind of seems out of it. Like, I'm not saying that he doesn't care about basketball, but there's times where you look at him and you go, he looks like he doesn't want to be there. And how much can you expect and depend upon a guy who doesn't want to be there? It's tough. I think this team, how they came into the season on paper, looks astronomically different from how they are right now.
Yeah.
And I think maybe our expectation was a little too high, but also the reality of just what this team is now is night and day to how it was 6, 7, 8 weeks ago. And I think that's the biggest thing.
But still, at the same time, Chris Bell had over 70 consecutive starts. He's in his junior season. Never came off the bench before.
He should be
and he still doesn't look confident out there. The reason you brought him off the bench was because he wasn't afraid of when he was going to be taken out, is he was ready to go in.
Yeah.
And we just still haven't seen the best version of him yet.
Yeah. No, I think like you saw that a lot with Clemson. And Clemson only played 8 players. Mm-hmm. And they still had a little bit of
ran
that
the
depth.
table on you.
Yeah. They had 8 players and they were just dominant. They had guys that when their number got called, they went back in, they were dominant. I think this Syracuse team, never thought I'd say this, right? But this Syracuse team needs to be given a little bit of the benefit of the doubt. Not all of it, but a little bit. That this is a really rough year. And be slightly patient. Because last year wasn't bad. And it's tough for Adrian Autry in here, too.
A team that also might be rebuilding as well, Syracuse women's basketball. They lost to NC State last night. We'll talk about the women after a quick break here on SportsNite. Don't go anywhere.
There is a one-stop listen for everything Syracuse athletics.
You got great talent on this offense. Like, you can't go dormant for an entire quarter. And
the Ostrom Avenue podcast provides unique opinions, plus exciting interviews from industry experts.
Joined by Georgia Tech play-by-play broadcaster Andy Demetra, Syracuse.com, football beat reporter Emily Laker.
Check out weekly interviews on YouTube and listen at waer.org or wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello, I'm Larry Bousquet.
And I'm David Holstein, and we are 2 of the managing members of the Bousquet-Holstein Law Firm.
We're proud to support WAER because for both Bousquet-Holstein and WAER, giving back to the community is an integral part of who we are.
Just like WAER provides reliable news and entertainment for its listeners each day, our attorneys work to provide quality legal service to clients and support a variety of organizations that strengthen the fabric of our community.
Kane Brown hears a lot from his fans. They tell him how much his music has touched them, and he reaches back with advice and encouragement.
Wish I had people there for me whenever I was coming up, and now God's put me here to be there for the people.
Kane Brown on his new album, The High Road, Saturday on Weekend Edition from NPR News.
Saturday morning from 8 to 10 on WAER.
Taking the top 20 team in the country to the last few minutes of a 40-minute game. We don't expect a second place consolation prize, but we certainly know the ACC understands we are coming.
Well, Syracuse women's basketball may not be coming into the ACC. An abysmal 1-7 in ACC play. Just brutal for Felicia Leggett-Jack's squad. Welcome back into Sports Night here on WAER alongside Andrew Delapiana. I'm Nathaniel Cunningham. Just wrapped up a quick conversation about Syracuse men's basketball, so now we're going to head over to the women's side. Syracuse women's hoops fell to number 20 NC State 74-66 yesterday. Andrew, this team led for 34 minutes of game time, and they lost by 8. You want to talk about a breakdown in the fourth quarter? That's what happened. Point blank, period.
Look, I love Felicia Leggett-Jack. I covered her last year for Citrus TV, and I got to feel the raw emotion basically after every single game that she felt pouring her heart and soul into this team in her first 2 years. And again, it's a down year. They're 1-7 in conference play. There's not a really big light at the end of the tunnel. But to say to the ACC, we're coming. Ooh, I don't know how I feel about that.
I think there's a lot of interesting things that Coach Jack has said this season. And another one that pops into my mind immediately is the early in the season when this team lost their first game, she said, "We don't lose, we learn." Well, she then said just a couple of games ago, I believe it was after the record 41-point loss to Boston College, that this team is rebuilding. So are you learning or are you rebuilding? It's a question that I think needs to be had, because this team was primed to pick up a ranked win, its second ACC victory, and just fell apart, and they couldn't score. It's that simple. They could not score.
It's hard to kind of think about this from a point where, again, this team was completely different looking just a season ago with De'Asia Fair and, everything that's kind of happened from that point on. I'm not a huge fan of the whole rebuild. We're coming. Like, that's the confusing part for me, because in the day and age of college basketball, that changes year to year, right?
Yeah.
The way teams can utilize the transfer portal. And, I mean, we've seen what happened with Louisville men's basketball.
It's a great example.
Pat Kelsey has completely turned around that program.
That's an excellent.
No, I'm not saying kick Coach Jack to the curb and bring in someone new. That's not what I'm saying at all. But still, you need some sort of direction that you can use for the rest of this season going into next year. And there hasn't been a concrete direction that this program is taking right now.
Yeah, I think I said it. I was on the double overtime after
that BC game.
Mm-hmm. And that was my final word for Coach Felicia Leggett-Jack, was that March 25th could not come quick enough because that's when the transfer portal opens. And I think there needs to be a real conversation with Coach Jack when she goes to hit the recruiting trail, saying this was an off year. And I think owning the fact that this was an off year.
Yeah, that's okay. Like, you can have a bad season. It's not the end of the world. But
wherever Coach Jack goes, she turns it to gold. She has proven that she is an excellent head coach. And this just wasn't really the option and the season that she thought she was going to have. I think she imagined Georgia Woolley to kind of step into those shoes a little bit better, and she hasn't. And I think that's really where the problem goes. But replacing Deasia Fair is never going to happen.
That's impossible.
You can't do it.
You can't do it.
There's very few. That's a once in a generational player. Deasia Fair was.
That is somehow still not in the WNBA, but that's a different conversation.
Yeah, we can talk about that for hours. But I think you have to go out and find your true number one. And if you could do that, I think this team is probably 500 in the ACC.
Yeah, that's
with a true
fair.
number one.
A good component maybe too is Sophie Burrows is looked a lot better in the back half of the season, I'd say. So maybe she's just learning under the teachings of Georgia Woolley, kind of been not herself, if you will. I mean,
yeah.
Something I really came to fruition after that BC game is after that 41-point drumming to Boston College.
It was brutal. It was brutal.
When Georgia Woolley is not here, what does this team look like? Like, who steps up and becomes that number one?
Well, so I think that's the reason that they need the number one.
It's like we're asking the same question as men's basketball. I'm having deja vu, Nate.
No, it's a very good question, is that the fact that both these teams are built around a player.
One single player.
And you can't have that, especially in today's game of basketball where teams are deep, like we talked about with the men's side. Like, teams have 2, 3, 4 options. Syracuse, if you shut down one, you're good. Like, yeah, you could coast yourself to a victory. And so I don't know what the solution is. I don't know if going and getting, because we saw it at times last year too. If Deasia Fair had an off game, and I'm saying off by like she only scored 15 points.
Oh wow, that's
a terrible game
just
from
a terrible
Deasia Fair.
game from Deasia Fair.
You know, the games were close and the games were competitive and they were, you know what I mean? And so, like, can Coach Jack create depth? She has the coaching resume that maybe Coach Autry doesn't, to say, I know how to win. I've done it.
Google me.
Yeah,
I win. Hate to quote Kirk Zanetti.
Exactly.
Google me.
Google me. Like, if you go Google what she's done, and I'm serious. If you don't, go check out her Wikipedia page. It tells you what she's done. Everywhere she's gone, she's created winning programs. She knows how to play.
They give you a whole sidebar of achievement. It's
exactly,
and
it's
website.
a laundry list. So I think this team just, I think it's kind of learn from this season, process this season, but really learn how to fight late in games, because this team could have beaten the number 20 team in the country if they worked a little bit harder in that fourth quarter.
They just didn't close out. That's the simple fact. I mean, you led for 34 minutes.
Yeah.
You led by 10 at halftime, and an NC State team who's been, under Wes Moore, one of the best programs.
An elite level program.
In the last 5, 10, 15 years or so. And you held that offense in check that returned all 3 of their top scorers from last year.
Yep.
And then the fourth quarter happened, and then you're saying it's just same old Syracuse. Same old Syracuse.
Well, it doesn't help this team. Team shot 20% from 3. They were 5 for 24.
They took 24 threes, too.
Yeah.
They don't do that a lot.
Well, so I think that's why it goes back to that point of having that true number one, because we talk about how many threes Deasia Fair took, but she also
different.
Attacked the basket.
Yeah.
I feel like sometimes when Georgia Woolley even attacks the basket, she's attacking by getting to the free throw line.
She's
and then
attacking to pass? Is that what you're saying? Or
no, I wasn't
drawing contact.
Drawing contact, right? There's a lot of times where she'll get to the free throw line, and then she'll try to get something kind of finger rolly, floater, some sort of thing to get contact. Whereas when Deasia Fair would try to attack the paint, she's getting all the way down the court. She's getting to the rim. She doesn't care who's down there. You could be 6'10". She's going to go at you the same way. And she was going to either draw contact or make the bucket. There's nobody on this team that wants to go inside and have to deal with the painted area, an area where Coach Jack's teams consistently want to dominate. That's been the preaching point for Coach Felicia Legette-Jack. Control the paint. And this team doesn't even want to go there. And they have the pieces to do it. Sanaya Wilson's solid in the paint. Isabel Verajao, she has got some of the best post moves I've seen in all of women's basketball. I think she's an excellent post player. And she's not utilized enough.
She doesn't utilize it.
It's sad. I think it's really, really sad to see talent that could be so much better. Again, similar to how we were saying with the men's team.
Where the problem also kind of lies is you don't have that 3-level score. Like, I look at some of the best 3-level scorers in the women's basketball game. The one that stands out to me the most is Paige Beckers by far. Like, she can finish and float and jump from anywhere on the floor. By far, one of, if not the best player in women's basketball, because she's so dangerous.
She's dynamic.
Every time she touches the basketball. Now, I'm not saying Georgia Willie has to go out there and play Paige Beckers, because that's not how that world works, but still.
Unless
have
it's the
some sort
NCAA
of
tournament.
Yeah, exactly. Then, she comes lockdown. But still, adding different elements to your game, I mean, for the first 3 quarters, Georgia Willie showed all of her tricks in her bag, right?
Yep.
She could shoot the 3. Some will get in the lane a little bit. But once defense is kind of step up, they step up to the perimeter, and then they switch off to the big. Once it gets in the paint, where's she gonna go?
There isn't anywhere for her to go. She's locked in, and I think
locked in the bad way.
Yeah. Sorry, not
not
strapped,
locked in.
not strapped in.
There you go.
She's
not true locked up.
Locked up. As a better way to put it. And she's really just struggled because she fails to have that ability to be dynamic. And I think this entire Syracuse team, again, not to draw comparisons to the men's squad, but both of these teams lack the dynamics that are required to, I think, really seal out of success. Nonetheless, this team, the season's not over yet. And I still believe, as I do with the men's squad, that this team can bring it somewhat back in. I know they're 7-12, but I think that there's some potential. They have to travel down to Little John Coliseum. You'll be down there.
I will be.
In Clemson, South Carolina, this Sunday to take on the Tigers. That one should be an interesting matchup. Hopefully get a little bit of momentum going. And I think that's the biggest thing now is getting a little bit of momentum, finding that offensive struggle, figuring out those offensive struggles, and then moving forward from there. But we've come up on another break here on Sports Night. We're going to step aside for a couple of seconds, but when we come back, we'll be joined with a very special guest. It's a reporter for Syracuse versus Pittsburgh tomorrow inside the Dome, Adam Gotkin. So you won't want to go anywhere right here on WAER.
On last week's Wait, Don't Tell Me, our panel took on the Village People performing their hit YMCA at the inauguration.
They also said that this is the last living member.
Yes.
So it's just why.
I'm Peter Sagal. Join us for the show that's not so much about why as WTF. This week with special guest musician MXM Tune from NPR.
Saturday morning at 11 on 88.3 FM WAER.
Selling a vehicle on your own, especially nowadays, can be a hassle, but donating it to WAER couldn't be easier. Simply provide a clean title and we'll take care of the pickup and donation receipt. To get started, visit WAER.org.
Who's gonna drive you home tonight?
How do you bring positive attention to your business when giving back to the community? Maybe you issue a press release or an announcement to foster goodwill. Well, program sponsorship on WAER can serve the same purpose. On-air acknowledgments of your philanthropic support for public media creates a halo effect that boosts your company's image. Plus, our audience tends to support the businesses that help bring public radio to our community. Learn how you can get started at waer.org/sponsorship.
There is a one-stop listen for everything Syracuse athletics.
You got great talent on this offense. Like, you can't go dormant for an entire quarter. And
the Ostrom Avenue podcast provides unique opinions, plus exciting interviews from industry experts.
Joined by Georgia Tech play-by-play broadcaster Andy Demetra, Syracuse.com, football beat reporter Emily Laker.
Check out weekly interviews on YouTube and listen at WAER.org or wherever you get your podcast.
Vibe, you're still high here on Sports Night. Taking you up till 9 o'clock here on WAER. Alongside Nathaniel Cunningham, I am Andrew Del Piana, and joining us is our reporter for tomorrow's game, Adam Gotkin. Adam, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Andrew. I'm very happy to be here tonight. I've got a lot of stuff to get off my mind, so it's a great night to be here in our lovely WAER studios.
You've been listening to the whole show, and I've seen a couple of the reactions out of the corner of my eye, so I'm sure this
should be fun.
Lovely.
If you have a question for Adam about tomorrow's game with the Panthers, please call in 315-443-2011 or text us at 315-556-3929. And don't forget to interact with us on Twitter and YouTube at WAER Sports Talk. But hey, let's dive right to these Pitt Panthers, who are on a little bit of a schneid. 4-game losing streak has dropped them back to 12-6 this season, but you can't look away from that kind of star-studded offense, if you will, for the Panthers, Adam.
Yeah, it's definitely been a bit of an interesting stretch recently for Pitt. You know, coming into conference play, this was thought of as one of the best teams in the ACC, and I think it still is. This 4-game losing streak, they've played, without a doubt, I think the 3 best teams in the conference in Duke, Louisville, and Clemson. You get destroyed at Duke. That's going to happen. No one's going to beat Duke this year in the ACC, I don't think. And then you lose by 4 to Louisville and by 3 in overtime against Clemson. And in between those, you lose at Florida State, which isn't a horrible loss. So, yes, it is 4 losses in a row, but it's going to be very rare that any team in the ACC this season has to play a stretch like that. And as you said, it is a talented Panthers team that was in the top 25 for a lot of this season, that picked up, a couple pretty good Power 5 non-conference wins, and it's a team that has a lot of talent still.
The only problem, they don't have Bub Carrington.
Oh, yeah.
No.
Washington Wizard as a DC guy.
Is he actually now?
Yeah. The most
How are they
noteworthy
doing?
team in the
Wizards
NBA.
playing well?
Cooper Flag sweepstakes.
There you go.
Bub Carrington, Alex Sarr, Jordan Poole, and Kyle Kuzma. Those are the 4 that I know.
Yeah, no, I don't even think the Wizards. Yeah, exactly.
Bilal Coulibaly.
The Wizards fans don't even know their own team.
But Bub Carrington, he was great at Pitt last year.
Yeah.
They've got guards.
They do.
Pitt is turning into a guard factory. I mean, they got a couple this year. Jalen Lowe, Ishmael Leggett, both averaging over 15 points, 2 of the top scorers in the ACC. That Carrington was a lottery pick, or almost a lottery pick last year. This is now a guard factory at Pitt.
It's going to be fun watching that guard matchup tomorrow between these two teams. Absolutely.
Yeah, I just think, when it comes down to it, this becomes a concerning. I think Syracuse can win this game.
I don't.
Really?
Yeah.
There's no chance Syracuse wins this game. I mean, if you had to put it on a scale, very famously, someone said there's 0% chance Syracuse beats a squad, and Syracuse ended up winning. So on a scale from 0 to 100. What is the percentage that Syracuse? I'd say it's about a 35 to 40% chance.
I think that's a little generous. I think there's 7.5-point underdogs at home. I would say maybe I give them a 10 to 15% chance to win this game. Here's my thing. Here's my biggest reason why I think Syracuse is really going to struggle, and it's because they're facing 2 elite scoring guards. We saw what Marcus Burden was able to do for Notre Dame last week. Syracuse shut him down in the second half. The issue with Pitt is that there's a second Marcus Burden. So there's a second guy that you then got to take care of. If one guy's taking over, you can't just switch defense onto him, because now the other guy's going to start playing well. That's the issue here.
Okay, so I guess the only then counter argument to that is it wasn't like Syracuse just shut down Marcus Burton. Syracuse shut down Notre Dame in general.
That's true, but Pitt's a better team than Notre Dame. And I think they're a much, much better team than Notre Dame. The Irish are an under 500 ACC team, bottom of the pack. Pitt's still technically fighting for an at-large bid. I don't think they're going to get it. Last year, Jeff Capel, their head coach, was going at it with the media and at it with the tournament committee for his team not making it in. I don't think they'd make it in this year as an at-large team, but they're going to be in that conversation. Notre Dame's nowhere close, so they're talented.
So the offense for Syracuse definitely needs to pick up in the game.
Oh, yeah.
They were very inconsistent back on Wednesday night. Here's what head coach Adrian Autry had to say about that level of inconsistency.
Didn't move. We talked about moving. We talked about, Clemson's going to guard you, as soon as you get over half court. So, everybody has to be moving. A lot of times it's going to be our bigger guys, being able to, release and try to move. And they didn't do it. They didn't do what we talked about.
So those bigger guys, they do have to step up, because as what you're getting from Gawkin, or Adam, I should say, just so harped on that last name, it just rolls off the tongue so easily.
I guess you could say that.
Is that the guard play for Syracuse is not up to par with what Pitt is. So the big men, they have to step up a lot more in this game.
Yeah, but I don't know if you can trust them. I don't know if you can trust the Syracuse
Eddie
big
Lampkin
men.
was one rebound away from his 5th consecutive double-double.
Nah.
I'd say he's relatively trustworthy.
I'd hope he can get a double-double when all he does is stand under the hoop. I mean, it's not that hard to get 10 points and 10 rebounds.
I 1,000,000% disagree.
His double-doubles aren't that,
he had
impactful.
4 offensive boards.
And they
Getting
still got
offensive-
dominated in the paint. They still gave up 40 points. It's still a net negative inside.
But even if you're losing the paint battle, is that saying, oh, Eddie Lampkin is getting, completely outplayed? We talked about it. It's a team problem. The reason Syracuse are getting beat in the paint is a team issue.
Yes, but I think a big part of that team issue is the fact that you have a guy who's pretty unathletic and not able to guard that many different types of players. I mean, we saw it last year with Malik Brown. He was undersized. Eddie Lampkin, he's obviously not undersized. He's I don't know. I don't want to say oversized, but he's a big guy. He's a big guy, and so this is now back-to-back years where Syracuse. We saw it last year with a lot of matchup issues with Malik Brown. It's back-to-back years where Syracuse has a center that does not fit into many defensive schemes, and so while he's able to get a double-double, as a team, it makes it more difficult for everyone else. I think that's what I'm kind of getting to. Yes, he gets a double-double, but I think it makes it more difficult for Jair Davis or whoever's down low with him. Majstorovic, when you're less athletic, it's harder to then play team defense.
I don't know if... Again, I can't sit here and say that's necessarily true because your criticism of Eddie Lampkin was the fact that he sits underneath the rim. But I'd say that's arguably the biggest strength that he has, is that he is a rim protector and that he is able to be so big down low that when the ball gets passed to the low post and when a guy like Ian Shefflin against Clemson, who lives down there in that low block area, he's able to kind of shut him off. Then Ian Shefflin dumps bounce passes into the cutting guys that are cutting through, and then they get open layups. That's not on Eddie. Eddie's doing his job. And so I don't think there's like a reason to sit here and point at Eddie being the problem.
Yeah, I think that's fair, but again, I think it makes it harder for everyone else. You can't switch on everything when you have a guy who's less athletic.
No, but then the guards
are
are supposed to be running off screens.
Yes,
and
I just think overall it makes it a little bit more difficult when you have a bigger guy down low who's not versatile on defense like you'd want a center to be.
You saw DJ Burns be successful.
Well, the thing is, too, is like Eddie Lampkin plays a lot at the top of the key as well. Like
oh, my gosh, way too much on offense.
He's not someone that sits a lot in the paint, backs down a guy, just goes to work like a DJ Burns, you said.
But I think he's more versatile and able to play up there.
No, he's not. He can't. He turns it over too much. I mean, his turnovers have become a real issue. He's got multiple turnovers in so many games this year. I mean, he's got 4 turnovers in 3 games. He's got 4 turnovers in 3. He's got 3 in a bunch more. He took a 3 for some reason with like 10 seconds left on the shot clock against Clemson. Like, why is he taking a 3 ever? Well,
Jesse Edwards took a 3.
And he made it. He made it. Yes, that's true. But why is Eddie Lampkin taking a 3 with more than 2 seconds on a shot clock? Like, I think if anything, he's got to be down low more. Like when the ball's in his hands up top, it doesn't necessarily always work out well because, as you guys were talking about earlier, the motion offense, what's supposed to be a motion offense,
it's not
doesn't have much motion.
There's no motion
and so
in the motion offense.
There's not many cutters for him to pass it to because this motion offense isn't motioning.
But when the motion offense is motioning, he looks really good. And he's delivered some of the best passes I've seen in basketball in a while.
He brought up the goggles.
If the motion offense was motioning, then this team maybe would be going to San Antonio for the Final Four, but they're not.
That's true. But the flashes in which they are, like I guess again, I'm being optimistic here.
Very
fair. But I think when this team is at its best, for the 4 minutes that they do win, because Coach Autry said let's bring it 4-minute games. They've not been winning.
I'd rather have the 40-minute games.
Yeah, they've not been winning a lot of 4-minute games.
Yeah.
But in the couple 4-minute games that they do win, they look good. And I think they could piece together enough of them tomorrow to go out there. I don't even think they need to piece together all 10. I just think they could piece together like 8. It'd be okay.
I think the only issue with that for me is that I think Jeff Capel at this point is one of the best coaches in the ACC.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a big on-the-court coaching advantage for Pitt in this game. And I think that worries me a little bit. Brad Brownell outcoached Adrian Autry back on Wednesday. And I think that we're going to see a similar thing here.
Can Adrian Autry outcoach his way to just the fourth conference victory for Syracuse
Still
this
think
season?
it's Syracuse women's basketball.
I
It's
know.
okay.
That last block tripped me up a little bit. We're on till 9 o'clock here on Sports Night. Call in about your thoughts if Adrian Autry can get the job done tomorrow against the Panthers. Call in 315-443-2011 or text us at 315-556-3929 and interact with us on Twitter and YouTube at WAER Sports Talk. Nate Cunningham, Andrew Delpiano, joined by reporter Adam Gotkin, ready for tomorrow's matchup between the Panthers and the Orange. So I'll give it to you straight. What is the key for Syracuse to pick up a victory tomorrow?
I think that you need one of the auxiliary guards to kind of go off on offense and score at least 15 points and help out J.J. Starling. Whoever it is, whether it's Chris Bell, Lucas Taylor, Kyle Cuff, Elijah Moore, one of those guys offensively has to step up because Pitt's going to be scoring. Pitt is a team that scores the basketball. When they score 80 points this year, they're 10-0. So you have to be able to score with them. There's no reason to believe that Syracuse is going to be able to stop this Pitt offense. So someone on offense is going to have to step up other than J.J. Starling. And also, I do have to say J.J. has to play well. Because
what is playing well for JJ?
It's his second half against Notre Dame. It's when he's able to take over. I mean, he was awful.
Did he play well against Clemson?
In the first half, yes, absolutely. In the first half, he played well. He's struggling to put together a full 40 minutes. But if J.J. Starling plays, yes, but he said it too. The ball's in his hands so much, and he's playing so much. It's hard for him to play a full 40 minutes. He's getting tired. I mean, you saw when he was playing bad against Louisville, first half against Notre Dame. When he's playing bad, things go really downhill. So I think step one is J.J. Starling has to play well. Step two, someone else has to step up behind him for this team to have a chance offensively to keep up with them.
I'm curious. We mentioned the concept of a team not having a true number one with Syracuse women's basketball. I'm curious if Syracuse men's basketball had that other option. Does JJ need to be the number one? Like
if this is is JJ Starling good enough to be a number one on a top 25 team? Is that kind of what you're asking?
Yes.
Probably not.
No. I think he's an elite number 3. He's a really good number 2 on a championship team.
I don't know about
that. This is getting really far into the future. I wouldn't be shocked if J.J. Starling goes to the SEC next year and is elite number 3 on a team if he wants to win. Like, that wouldn't necessarily surprise me in today's era of the transfer portal. I don't think it matters that he's a local kid. He's going to necessarily stay. I don't think you can guarantee anyone is staying at this point. It wouldn't shock me if he goes somewhere and he's like the third option and he's really, really good.
But then doesn't that risk what this team has coming in next year in the recruiting class that this team has next year? This squad at this point in the season right now cannot risk anything happening with Kai and Anthony and Sadiq White.
Oh, I don't think you can care about an incoming recruiting class. I think I think that is a
1,000,000% disagree.
I think that is I know this is a little bit off topic, but for all of the Autry conversation on X, I think that the counter argument of what if you lose this recruiting class, I think that's personally, and I know that you disagree, but I'm still going to say it. I think it's the dumbest take out there because we currently have at this with this team a great recruiting class with the best recruit since Carmelo Anthony and Elijah Moore, who's supposed to be this elite three-point shooter, a high-caliber 4-star, and it doesn't matter. They're still a bad team. Sadiq White is a top 30 prospect, nowhere close to what Donnie Freeman was. Kai and Anthony, his dad is Carmelo, but he's a top 50-ish guy. Both of them have been dealing with a lot of injuries throughout this entire year. I don't think that recruiting class is necessarily going to be great.
But if you return the recruiting class if those two come into this year, Donnie Freeman's healthy on his foot.
That's a whole
and
other thing.
I know you said before that he if he wants to...
I don't think he's back. Let's just say that now.
I understand that. But let's speak in the slight hypothetical here for a second. You understand that you have Anthony and White coming in. Freeman is here. JJ would be on his senior year. You would lose Eddie, but you trust that Autry can go in and get a semi-equivalent level center or better.
There's no reason to try. I mean, look at every single transfer portal acquisition other than J.J. Starling. There's no reason to trust that any of them can be any good, though.
I understand that.
And Starling was a layup because he's a local guy he's known since he was 5 years old.
I understand that. But, there's too much here to say this team isn't that close to being really good.
I don't think they're that close at all.
I agree. They're.
I think they're so far off.
I'm not saying that close to being a top 25 team, but I'm saying that close to returning to 20-win seasons that look normal, that this team can be, at worst, middle of the ACC.
I think they're far
this
off from
team
that.
is right there.
Well, the difference in the ACC is substantial. The
the
top
ACC
tier
is much
teams.
weaker.
Well, there's really a top tier,
There is the
and then
A-top
a huge drop. I mean, you think about Pitt. Pitt's right in that second tier.
Correct.
Pitt's probably a little bit below Clemson and
Not
Louisville.
at Duke's level,
They're
of course,
right about
but
where UNC is right now. They're 10th in the SEC. Pitt.
You'd say, yeah, okay.
Somewhere around there. They'd get boat raced by every single... the level of play right now in the ACC is so bad. I mean, this is a Syracuse team that we saw them in non-conference play lose so many games to not great power conference teams that if you put them in the SEC, they'd be horrible. So to win 20 games in the ACC doesn't necessarily mean you're that good. We saw it last year. That's not that hard to do at this point, especially if you can beat up on a bunch of bad teams early in the season. But I think if we're talking what you said, being close to a legit contender, I think that this Syracuse team is really far away from that. And I think that we're going to see that tomorrow because a team that's actually close to being a contender will not lose by double digits at home to a non-ranked team, which is what I think is going to happen.
We'll just have to wait and see. Seems like a good way to put a bow on this conversation. Adam, thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to
Enjoy
be
the
here.
Dome tomorrow. Hopefully there's a good crowd there. Hopefully that's the goal.
Who knows?
Right?
Who knows?
There's 20,000 people in there last time.
20,000
More. That was more than
sold.
Georgetown.
Tickets sold.
No, I think there was 20,000 people in attendance.
No, they don't count every single person.
All right.
That's
well,
a conversation. For
Either
another
way, hopefully there's a lot of people in the Dome to watch that game. That is a 12:30 start. But we'll take one final break here on Sports Night and be right back after this.
The BBC World Service, the world's radio station.
The BBC World Service makes programs with a uniquely global perspective.
Enlighten us. Where do we start?
The latest world news and current affairs.
The very best in global arts and culture.
What has been happening on the financial markets today?
Social issues, political stories.
Everything was there in a way that I've never heard before.
The BBC World Service.
Weekdays after Morning Edition at 9 on WAER, your local NPR station.
I'm Peter O'Dowd. At a California landfill, a little robot chihuahua scampers over mountains of trash in search of methane.
A tool that we use or we can use to, sniff out potential leaks at the landfill, right? As dogs do.
Our climate series Reverse Course with stories that stink. Next time on Here and Now.
Weekdays from noon to 2 on 88.3 WAER and streaming live on WAER.org.
At Marketplace, we help you understand what's going on in the economy and why. There is no topic too large or too small, whether it's the housing market, jobs, interest rates, even the prices we are paying at the grocery store. Our independent journalism is critical in helping you connect the dots and getting the context that you need. So, join me, Kai Risdal, every weekday on Marketplace.
Weeknights at 6 on 88.3 WAER.
Sports Night almost over here on your Friday night. Just a little over 5 minutes to go, but that doesn't mean we're done. We're going to take you all the way up till the hour and 9 o'clock, so don't go anywhere. We got a little bit of fun that we're about to have here on WAER alongside Andrew Delapiana. I'm Nathaniel Cunningham. We're going to start And we're going to kind of have some fun because it's National Compliment Day.
These days are getting out of
There's a bunch of them.
It's unbelievable.
Everybody gets a day. So we decided, you know what? How about we give out one compliment for any Syracuse
any player on the Hill.
Anybody that plays athletics at the University of Syracuse. You could say anything you want about their athletic ability, who they are, the player. So, Andrew, I'll give the floor to you.
Oh, thank you.
Who's
so
your
much.
compliment for and why?
Well, this is maybe a little bit of an easy pick, but it's for a completely different reason that people are completely overlooking. It's the guy this year on Syracuse men's lacrosse, number 22, Joey Spallina. You love him, you know him. And it's not just that his game is taking another step this year, Nate, but it's the lettuce he's got here in 2025. I don't know if you saw that picture that he has for USA Lacrosse as like one of the best players in the country, but that kid has got some lettuce right now. And I love it. And for someone who can't grow hair in the back of their head, you're just like, dude, stop rubbing it in my face. But still, I got to appreciate the style that kid has, and hopefully it leads to a big season for Syracuse.
Hopefully it does lead for a big season for Syracuse. The men's lacrosse team, they get underway just a week from now, a week and a day on
tomorrow.
Friday, or
next
Saturday.
Saturday.
February 1st, excuse me. But I think my compliment for National Compliment Day has got to go to Syracuse softball star pitcher, Madison Knight. And I say pitcher, but I'm going to use that term very loosely because she is the Shohei Ohtani of Syracuse softball.
Correct.
She's got a 2.96 ERA in 53 appearances. She has struck out 195 batters in 241 innings. So strikeouts could be a little higher, but she doesn't give up the long ball or massive hits all that often. And I forgot to mention she's hitting 255 with a total of 12 doubles, a couple of homers as well, 10 on her career in just 2 seasons, 48 RBIs. She could swing the stick, plays a little bit of first base too. I think she's going to be a really big piece to this pitching staff, especially with the loss of Lindsey Hendricks due to eligibility. All right. That's unfortunately all the time that we have here on
Big game
SportsNite.
tomorrow.
Big game tomorrow.
Let's do it.
You'll definitely want to tune in here on WAER. Syracuse basketball takes on Pittsburgh. Game time is at 12:30, but we've got coverage starting at 12 with McClurg Remodeling countdown to tip-off. The double overtime for that game will run up till 4:30. On it, we'll have Ryan Bridges and Jono Weintraub. But we got to give a couple of thank yous out as well to our producer, Ryan Bridges, who's out there. Our reporter, Adam Gotkin, for joining us, talking a little bit about that upcoming game. Our incredible engineer, Max Gifford, pressing all the right buttons today. And to our WAER Sports Talk Desk, Nick King and Josh Rajanoff. It's just been an absolute excellent show. Friday nights don't get much better than when you're on SportsNite. So, from Andrew Delapiana, I'm Nathaniel Cunningham, Syracuse. Have a wonderful evening.